Hello, Ian and Leonie. Hello, everybody. We have a Woodland Walk today with two of our ACER facilitators who have also co-founded an amazing project called Saipan, which stands for
Psychedelic Participant Advocacy Network.
You say it.
It's the Psychedelic Participant Advocacy Network.
So today, Ian and Leonie will tell us a little bit about their project, about where it came from, and about how being part of a community of purpose might help and support the development of these kind of value-led mission projects. So thank you both for coming along today. People listening to this may well know you from circles that they've been to with you both. And could you start us off by telling us a little bit about your experience, just a few words around your experience of being part of the first round of ACER, which we called the Connectedness program at the time, and just a few kind of reflections now looking back a few years later of what it was that you learned, maybe from that framework of starting a value-led project, and maybe how that might have influenced you in some way, or anything from that that you think might be relevant for this audience of people in ACER who are, you know, part of our community of purpose together.
I think as I joined the Connectedness program after Leonie had started it, maybe, I don't know, do you want to talk about your experiences of being part of that before? Because I then joined later, and there was, yeah.
So I was really fortunate that the Connectedness program, where I started the Connectedness program during lockdown, and I was really fortunate to be invited to participate in the program. And it was very soon after I'd completed the Imperial trial, looking at psilocybin for treatment-resistant depression the previous November, December. So for me to have the opportunity to be part of a program which offered sort of longer-term integration support, and the opportunity to connect to other people on a similar journey, and to continue that deep connection with myself and then the natural world. I think a lot of us connected quite deeply with the natural world during lockdown because we couldn't see each other face to face. So for me, that opportunity was so super timely, and it really sort of bolstered my idea and my belief on how important it is to live your life by your values. I think I'd started that December, just before the Connectedness program, to do some work for one of the longest running psychedelic retreat organizations in Europe, trying to see how other people who might not be part of a clinical population might access these incredible and transformative medicines too. So really trying to put the skills I had brought from my working life and my personal life into trying to make a meaningful difference in other people's lives who might be on a similar path of healing and transformation.
Thank you, Leonie.
Yeah, and then so I'd taken part in the pilot study of the Imperial College psilocybin for depression trial, and also then taken part in a second trial in 2019, the Compass King's psilocybin for depression trial. And so it'd been that was in 2019, the second trial. So it had been a while for me since my previous psychedelic experience, but I think you're always in the place where you learn so much during these experiences, and there's always so much to integrate. And the Connectedness program really came at the right time for me. Can we cut that bit out, because I've just realized something. Right. So yeah, I'd taken part in my second clinical trial, which was the Compass Pathways King's College psilocybin for treatment-resistant depression trial in 2019. And while there was more onus on integration afterwards than there was during the first trial that I took part in 2015, which was the Imperial College pilot study, the pandemic really changed everything. So I was going to integration groups, the Maudsley Psychedelic Society integration group, and when the pandemic happened, they did, I think, revive it online afterwards, but I did feel a bit adrift after that, and had a lot that I still needed to integrate and to work through. And it was fantastic that Ros got in touch to invite me to join the Connectedness program that Leonie and various other people were already part of. I think I joined, maybe it was a month or two after it had begun. And to have that space to be able to connect with people, you imagine that doing things online, you couldn't develop the deep connections that you could maybe say in a face-to-face integration circle, but that quickly became clear, it quickly became clear that that wasn't the case, and that we really formed deep bonds of trust. And it was a space where we were encouraged to turn up as our fuller selves, like the wonky trees, the ones that we're more attracted to. The wonky trees was the gnarled trunks and the wonky branches, but we seem to expect ourselves to be this vision of absolute perfection in every way so that we can be accepted and loved or whatever. And it took a while for me to realize, coming into the group later than the others, that I felt like, they know each other already, they've developed these bonds already, everyone made me feel super welcome, but I had all these hang-ups in my head. But very quickly I was in the position within those groups to be able to voice that and say, I feel a bit uncomfortable, I feel like a bit of an outsider. And everyone was just so kind and compassionate within that space. And that really set the tone for the whole Connectedness program. It really was about showing up however you were feeling. You didn't have to wear a particular mask. You could just be there as your fuller, authentic self. And that was, welcomed, embraced, respected. And there were times where, certain members of the group would have a dip, but others were doing slightly better maybe. And everyone just kind of gathered around. And yeah, it really was about the connections between people that really made such a huge difference. And originally, the Connectedness program was meant to have a truffle retreat after the first few months. And because of the pandemic, obviously that fell by the wayside, although it was moved. And, there were various times where we thought, it's going to happen, and then it didn't. But while that was hugely disappointing on certain levels, because all of us wanted, we'd benefited from the trials we'd taken part in, we really wanted to have that experience, particularly as we'd formed these bonds within the group as well, to have that together. But in the most important of ways, it really didn't matter in the end, because that connection between everyone within that group was the most important thing. Having, that community of people that you could just be your fuller self with, wonky trunk and all, was the most important part of the whole process. That wasn't clear at the start, and how could it have been? We're all kind of hanging on for this amazing retreat, but yeah, it really, the bonds that we formed during that group and during those sessions will last forever.
Oh, it's lovely to hear you both speak. And yeah, you've both, I suppose, talked about the connection to purpose and values, and that idea of having a project and wanting to get involved in the psychedelic kind of thing, Leonie and Ian, and also connection to nature. And Ian, you talked about the connection to each other and that amazing kind of vulnerability and being able to take the mask off and see each other as trees and see ourselves as wonky trees. And yeah, it was a lovely experience. And I guess from that, then you've both become facilitators for this next round of ACER, but maybe more importantly, you have developed together Saipan. So as well as your work within ACER, you have this amazing other project, which is really important. And people may not know about it, or they may not. But so firstly, Ian, I remember around the time when you first started to develop this, can you talk a bit about what was the dream, what was the passion, what was it that you wanted to change in the world? What made you pursue this in the way that you did? The spark of this idea, where did it come from? And what is Saipan? Sorry, that was a lot of questions, but you know where I'm going.
Yeah, I'll do my best to cover all of those. So really, ever since the first trial that I took part in 2015, I became involved in doing advocacy work. So Imperial College were bombarded with interview requests and that sort of thing. So I think they filtered them and then passed them on to those of us that were happy to do that sort of thing. And while it was deeply uncomfortable talking about my experiences publicly, the cause was greater than I was. That's how I always felt. It was like I really wanted to destigmatize psychedelic assisted therapy, really wanted to normalize the conversation around it, help to shift perceptions, that go back 50, 60 years now, all of that baggage, and kind of address that and challenge that gently and help to change people's minds. And also, I think, there's an element of bringing some hope to people that found themselves in a similar situation where you've tried everything your GP and local mental health services can provide, if you can access that in the first place, of course, which is a huge problem now. And for many of us, the existing tools that are available just don't work. So there's an element of that. It's quite hard to say that you want to bring hope to others by talking about these treatments because of how inaccessible, particularly during the first trial. I was one of 20 people lucky enough to take part in that trial, so it was extremely narrow band of people. But I hoped by talking about it would bring hope. It would help to normalize the conversation. And then, as you know, Ros, we started doing some public talks together. Again, just really to try and help people understand what the process was like of taking, receiving this treatment, what you may go through. Again, completely terrifying, being up on a stage in front of crowds of people. But once again, the cause was always bigger than myself. So through that work, several years later, so taking part in the second trial in 2019, I think it was before then, but I became involved in the King's College, their own study, being on the working group that they have for what's called the Schneider trial, which again is psilocybin for treatment-resistant depression. And really enjoyed doing those meetings as well. So all of this was advocacy work, but I had the burning kind of urge to do much more. And the meetings were few and far between. There's only so many times maybe that you can kind of be interviewed about the same thing all the time, or there are only so many times that you can maybe give the same public talk, for instance. That evolves over time, so it's possible to keep doing those. But I really felt that deeper work needed to be done with the organizations providing these trials and treatments. So I remember saying to you, I think we were recording, which park was it we were in for the Me You Can't See, the Oak documentary.
Hampstead Heath.
It was Hampstead Heath, yeah. And I said to you, I think, how do I make this my life? And it took a while after that, working out exactly how that might work out. I think it was during the second lockdown we did that. It was a very strange time that we did those interviews, but gradually sort of started to form in my head. And I'd felt for so long, somebody really needs to do this work, but there's only so long that you can keep pointing the finger outwardly until it starts facing you and you're like, well, I need to do something about this, it's on me. And that's a huge responsibility. But yeah, I think the pandemic helped to give me the sort of headspace to be able to think about things more clearly. So a really key part of forming everything, well, I mean, the name Saipan came into my head when I think I was lying in a hammock in the garden on a really hot sunny day during the pandemic, thinking, what do I want to do with my life? But it was really putting the website together and really kind of forming, well, what could this be? And it's really important to say that, yes, I could probably have done this work on my own. I guess I could have just been a consultant for these organizations or companies, but it really wasn't about that. I mean, it is, I have one experience or two trials, two experiences. And while those experiences are huge and there's a rich amount of detail and learning that comes from those, really the whole value of Saipan is having a community and a network of people with those lived experiences. So it was actually, bizarrely, the first time I ever met Leonie face to face on the Connectedness program retreat in Caernarfon in Wales. That I mean, that was the thing, we got to know each other so well and built trust during the, you know, the Zoom calls. It didn't feel as weird or sort of strange or as sort of rushed as it may sound, because I think you announced that I was launching Saipan during one of our Zoom meetings, and Leonie was like, "Oh, I've been on a parallel path, you know, since the trial that she'd taken part in at Imperial College." And that's really the kind of root and the seed in the beginning of, this isn't just about me, it's about us, it's about a community, it's about bringing, you know, as many experiences and, yeah, the wealth of lived experience. We have such varied experiences during these trials, you know, during a dosing session, and it's really important that we have that richness of experience. So it's not just the two of us being consultants, for instance. It's like working with Leonie was very much, you know, that's kind of microcosm of the sort of the wider community. You know, we're bringing our lived experience together. We're sharing that knowledge and experience, but we never sit there saying we have the knowledge and the wisdom. Our aim and what we're doing at the moment is that we're creating a whole community of people that have been, you know, received psychedelic assisted therapy for many different conditions. And the more people that join that community, the richer it is, the more we can help these organizations providing trials and treatments to improve them, but also the more that we can connect with each other. And I think that's a key strand coming from the Connectedness program and what is now ACER, you know, is so I've lost my thread.
The connecting with each other, the importance, that what's coming through is the importance of connecting with each other.
Yeah, the importance, yeah, to have spaces where you are welcomed to be your fuller self, where, you know, your broken branches and your wonky trunk are embraced and, you know, embraced with compassion and acceptance. You know, it's the value of connecting to other people that have that shared lived experience. We knew it from the very start. It was very much like, we had a couple of socials after the Imperial trial, and that meant so much to all of us within that. But then that was built upon via the Connectedness program, you know, that has now become ACER, that forming those deep bonds and sharing those really deep lived experiences in a space without judgment, you know, where, yeah, you can do that without fear of being judged or dismissed or belittled, you know.
Oh,
I feel I've rambled a bit there.
No,
I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
There were a lot of questions.
There were a lot of questions, and I think you've covered it beautifully. And you've mentioned about Leonie joining, and I guess our Woodland Walk for this month is in the month of Apple Tree, which is all about the orchard and cross-pollination. And you say about how you could have just done this on your own, but the huge value coming from working with Leonie too, and bringing your experiences together and cross-pollinating. So Leonie, as joining in with this and having your own parallel process, and this being your vision too, can you tell us about what it is in you that gave rise to this sense of the importance of this, and what your vision is, and how it's been, and what you've brought to working within in Saipan? Again, lots of questions, but
lots of questions. I'm not sure I'll get through all of them.
Go wherever you want to go. Yes.
So, yeah, so as I sort of mentioned earlier, I started doing some work in the psychedelic space for legal retreats, but I was left with this sort of nagging and burning question that people who weren't well enough or deemed well enough to access these treatments legally in that way, and might actually really benefit from a more closely held container, one-on-one work, or two-to-one in the case of the trials. What about those people? So I sort of had this nagging urge of like, there are other people, like me or with other conditions who would really benefit for this. What can I do there? I was then invited to join Professor David Nutt's medical psychedelics working group to be an expert by experience, which was a fantastic opportunity because all the pharma companies are there, a lot of academics and scientists. I could really put in my lived experience. But again, I noticed I was just talking about my perspective and my lived experience, which is incredibly valuable and a powerful experience for me. But I was noticing there were so many people with so many different experiences which weren't sitting around the table, whose views and experiences weren't being represented. So I started thinking about like just talking to people informally, getting some ideas feeding into my thinking. So it was really quite lucky when Ian and I found out we were doing similar things in terms of advocacy and trying to destigmatize this work, and realized, well, actually, why don't, instead of it just being me sitting on the medical psychedelics group, why don't I introduce you, and why don't we get involved together and do this thing together, because we're better off together. It's really quite lonely to be walking this path alone. So, again, mycelially connecting, not with other people trying to do the same thing in the same area, just seemed like a no-brainer at that point. It's like, yep, let's try do this. And I think you mentioned the cross-pollination, Ros. I think Ian and I have complemented each other in like very many different ways in terms of like working styles and the different connections and networks we've brought into this. Our mycelial network is supercharged now. We know a lot of really incredible people doing a lot of, yourself included, Ros, doing a lot of really incredible work in this space. And it feels enlivening and enriching to be contributing to something that's sort of heart-led and really contributing to a greater good, and really, being in line with your values. You get up, and no matter how hard a workday might be, you really feel like you're working towards something, and there's something that you can contribute to that'll make a difference not only to your life but that of your family, your friends, and the ripples just go on and on. Your local community, your government, if you're presenting on psychedelic therapies, to the country and what the different nations are now doing in terms of legalizing these treatments. So the ripples are huge, and it just starts with actually acting in line with your values and then finding the others, really.
Beautiful.
Short to answer. I don't think I answered everything, but that'll do.
No.
Shorter than my answer, so well done.
I love it. I saw a quote somewhere that said recently, do what only you can do, which I guess is the same thing as the values thing. And you both had these very specific experiences and this real sense of wanting to share it and advocate and bring in more voices and speak up for people who were being missed out of the mainstream psychedelic retreat kind of movement. And you had this real passion of knowing that there was something else that was required, a different kind of support, and knowing that there was a different kind of, not just the support during the psychedelic session, as in different to a retreat, more supported, session, but also that there was something needed afterwards. And you both, it was your lived experience that helped you both come to that thing that only you could do. It was burning in you from all these different experiences, combination of different parts of your life and what you'd experienced, and it all kind of worked together to create this magical combination that you both had. And then you found each other, and you're both, it's such a niche set of experiences. There aren't that many people in the world with precisely, well, at the time that you started Saipan, there were not very many people in the world probably with exactly the kind of experiences that you had both had to make you the only people, well, not the only, but some of the only people that could do this. And you found each other, and then that supercharges the whole thing. So I suppose for people feeling like, they want to be part of the psychedelic movement, or they want to lead a values-led project, there is something around what you said, Leonie, like find what your values are. What is it like? What's your joy? What's your bliss? What's the passionate spark inside you? What can only you do? And then find others that have the same spark, and then bring all your different skills together. But that makes it sound like it's kind of easy. And I know that, we've all shared notes a lot because we're all, three of us are doing the same. We're all trying to do something that doesn't have a blueprint and that we care a lot about, but there's no money in it, and there's no job security, and there's no like you know, there aren't even any regulating like agencies for anything that we're doing, so it's kind of like really out on a limb, and there's often a lot of struggle and not that much there's very little financial support or even other sense of other support around it. You're kind of like out in the kind of, yeah, in an uncharted territory on your own, going, is this a good idea or is this not a good idea? Like, is this going to work? And there's no certainty. So we've had lots of conversations about this, and just over to you both, like, what would you say in terms of what has been, I'll try and just give you two questions in one go now. What has been very disconnective, i.e. what has been isolating and hard, and what has been connective and what makes it all worthwhile?
Okay. So let's start with disconnective. So I went from having so-called normal jobs, you know, did a couple of charity roles where I had really good colleagues around me, some of which are friends for life, but you know, I really miss that. And Saipan has been running for 2 years now, pretty much. It's nearly 2 years since Kaima Bon happened, and we had that conversation together, and everything began fully. And yeah, it's been tough. I miss having colleagues. I really again, it's about connectedness, and that's the thing. That's what we're trying to help people to do. But walking this path is quite, yeah, disconnected. It's quite isolating. It's quite a lonely path to walk in many ways. Particularly, it's great that we can all talk now as we are on Zoom and work from home, but I really need that face-to-face contact. So I would say that is a big part of the disconnection that comes with it. The lack of income that comes from setting something up from scratch, doing every single role that a company requires, even though 90% of that is nothing to do with the reason why you started an organization in the first place. That's all really hard. It's all quite dull, a lot of it. It's not exciting, but if you don't have you know, if you don't have money to employ other people to do that, you have to do it all yourself. So it's been really hard. It's been really difficult. I've questioned regularly, weekly, sometimes daily, you know, why am I doing this? Am I the right person to do this? Should I be doing this? Because everyone I know that's received psychedelic assisted therapy via a clinical trial still lives with that same health condition. So you look at yourself and you think, well, I still struggle with my mental health. Is putting myself under this huge amount of pressure and stress worth it? Which I guess is what leads me on to the connective or connecting side of things. First of all, yeah, I have to say that without connecting with Leonie to walk this path together, I don't think I'd be walking it anymore. We really do, a bit like the group, really, a bit like our circles, our connectedness circles, where one of us will be going through, you know, a valley or whatever at the time, and you know, the other one's there who may be doing slightly better, you know, can't, sometimes we're both struggling, but we always meet each other where we are, you know, and we're able to talk to each other about it, and that connection really makes a huge difference. Then on a more wider level, we have the community of people, and we're trying to work out the best ways to connect everyone together and connect with the community that we've been building over the last 2 years. That in itself, so with one of the organizations, one of the trial providers, we've created a participant collaboration council, and it's been the two of us and 2 other former trial participants, and that has been amazing. Again, you know, you're just broadening the circle slightly and listening to other people's lived experiences, you know, and sometimes it's wildly different to what you've experienced yourself, but then there are those common themes that really only people that have been through that kind of treatment journey, whatever, really understand. And it's been so valuable for all of us to do this work together. but also, you know, we're not just meeting to share experiences. It's with a view to creating like a model of best practice that is then shared across, you know, the psychedelic ecosystem to improve things across the board. That's the hope, you know, and to think that, you know, the four of us will hopefully be able to trigger that and then build upon it, hopefully with ever increasing circles and more of a community involved in it, is really amazing. And it's only really recently that it's a stressful path to walk. It is a hard path to walk, but I've had some moments, thankfully, after 2 years of walking this path, where I've just, I've had, I think it's more, I've had the thought, this is really good work. This work needs to be done. It's got a huge amount of value, but it's always like almost been kind of, sometimes it feels like the amount you have to put into it, you're sacrificing yourself for the cause. And I'm just about getting to a stage now where I'm able to stand back a little bit more and just feel really content and grateful for everything that we've achieved so far and everything we're doing. It's still a constant nosebleed rush, and I question the sanity of us doing it, but I'm really glad that we are doing it.
Oh, yeah, it's so nice to hear this. Yeah, that you're there. And Leonie, what about for you? Your disconnective or disconnecting and connecting parts of this path that you're walking.
So I think for me, the disconnecting part is that we're still doing this incredible work or trying to do the best we can in this incredible area of work, but that it's still largely operating in the same societal container, that we're operating in a world that just can't understand the things we're trying to usher in with, and I'm not just talking about psychedelic substances, I'm just talking about ways of working, about collaboration over competition, about cooperative working, about not working in silos but like horizontally, about really playing to everyone's strengths and not trying to be cookie cutters, you know, people coming out of cookie cutter molds, really trying to find what that spark is in people, and being the change we want to be in the world. So when you're operating in a world which doesn't really welcome most of that and really wants you to do something else or has expectations of what an acceptable adult life looks like, and what kind of work you should be doing and what kind of, you know, life you should be leading, this is slightly on the frontiers. So it's quite hard to be doing something that's so culturally out of people's frame of reference. So I think it can be, yeah, it can feel quite lonely in that way. But I think the alternative is to, for me, is to live and work in a way that only exacerbates isolation and disconnection. So it's a bit of a like, well, I have to do this, even if it feels lonely, because this lonely is a, you know, hopefully transient, it is purposeful. I've just got to find the people, because the other lonely is just a mind melting, soul destroying, not a good path of existing, of working, of relating to people, yourself, and the natural world. So for me, yeah, constantly working in that container is a bit of a challenge. But I think the connection, and this is the connective part, the connection to the people in this work, again, finding your tribe, finding people who share your values, who are pulling that cart in the same broad direction. You get a lot of inspiration, of resourcefulness, in finding others who are working along a similar path. And, you know, you can learn from each other, even though you might not be doing exactly the same thing. There's so much about the shared human experience in trying to do good, bring good into the world, as being a vessel for change, of trying to be the change you wish to see in the world, right? Instead of hoping somebody, as Ian was saying, hoping somebody else will do it. It's like, no, I'm doing this thing, and it's hard, and I could do with some company and you know, companionship on this journey. So yeah, for me, I think that connection and actually finding people who are motivated by the same values has been incredibly inspiring.
And I love the idea as well that you mentioned about you know, well, that you've both mentioned different ways about being part of an ecosystem that's trying to build a new ecosystem, and that rather than, and as you mentioned, Leonie, coming into cooperation rather than competition, it means that we're all working together. So all these different organizations and companies and things are just bringing up, there's like, we can all work together, which is an amazing thing. So rather than being, yeah, in competition, we can create an ecosystem that's bound by the laws of nature around, yeah, a reciprocity and sharing, like the trees do, rather than competing for light, like they used to think the trees did before they realized what the mushrooms were doing underground. So yeah, it's, I suppose there's support as well from not just from the people within our own organizations, but from people within other ones, and that we're growing and building all the time. But I do know that all of the people in all these organizations that are popping up have one thing in common: we're all very tired. Because there is that sense, isn't there, that we're kind of like, it's tiring. So maybe we also need to kind of there's something about pioneering this, and it's so important that we do it, but also the importance of remembering we can rest and remembering we can slow down, and we don't have to do it all yesterday, and that we're all as tired as each other, which shows that it's kind of nothing personal, but there is just something tiring about being, as you say, on the frontier of anything. Do you have, just in our last few minutes, do you both have any top tips that if there's anyone listening to this who is thinking they've maybe just come into the psychedelic world, or they're having some kind of personal process where they're really discovering what their light is, what their values are, and they're thinking, I want to start a project, but it's obviously very scary. Do you have any tips for people about what helped you keep going, or any tips for people that might be thinking about stopping their previous work and the fear around that? Just any little few words of wisdom for anybody that might be actually thinking about how to take the plunge, any little things that could have helped, that helped you, that could help them?
Yeah, I would think that people need to make sure they resource themselves. Exactly, you're saying, Ros, the tiredness. I think the top tip would be that, you know, in making any of these changes, make sure you have a strong personal practice, whatever that may be, to resource yourself, meditate, and make sure there's some rest built into that practice. You know, make sure you're resourcing yourself. And I think ultimately I'd say trust the process, as Ian has touched. There's so many times you think this is, I don't know what we're doing, I don't know what anybody's doing, and yet life shows you the path. Be open to the synchronicities, to the little pointers, the slight nudges. I think if you have that spark, things start overlapping and building towards a clearer picture. So it really is about following your heart, finding your people, and yeah, realizing we can't do these things alone. We're all mycelially connected, and we can be the change we wish to see in the world. So yeah, don't think you need to have all the answers. I think, you know, you take that journey happens, the path forms by taking that step, really. So the moment you start, I think little synchronicities and things, well, that's been my experience, will start coming in and nudging you along. And so it's not actually that you're really doing anything, you're being like guided. It's a beautiful trusting the process exercise.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Leonie. Ian,
Yeah,
do you...
I would echo that, what you both just said. Really, you really have to nurture and nourish yourself within all of this, because it's very easy to give every single shred of yourself, your energy, your life, to what is, is your meaning, is your cause. But if you do that, the path will be a lot shorter, because you will burn out and you won't be able to continue. So you need to keep putting some good in, some nourishment in. I'd say, because I still live with whatever it is that's going on in my head. I'm very anxious, and I do think that it's important to know that, yeah, it may feel huge, it may feel overwhelming what you're trying to achieve, but if you start the doing, if you try and step away from the thinking and thank your brain for warning you about, how crazy your idea may be, or how unlikely it is to work or whatever, but to step away from that and to start the doing. And I think once you start the doing, gently start the doing, in a sustainable way that you can manage, then that's really where, hopefully, yeah, that's how you can begin. It may seem hugely daunting and scary at the start, but it's starting that is the most important part. And really, I agree with Leonie, that you are eventually, hopefully, guided, and you find yourself in some kind of flow. I would also say, there are no wrong directions, really. I mean, you will make a whole ton of mistakes. Every one of those you will learn from, and will make you wiser and better at continuing the path that you're on. So don't also be worried, first of all, about making the wrong decision. Try not to worry, and I do worry about this a lot, about all the things you're not doing all the time. Try to find some peace within what you have achieved, what you are able to do in a sustainable way. You know, definitely this may be a a very kind of, it may feel like a perilous and uncertain path to walk when you start something new, but yeah, just keep focusing on every footstep, every toe that strikes the ground, and try to find some peace in that.
I love that. Taking it step by step and let that be enough, even though there's so many other steps that you could have, should have, definitely should have, but didn't take. Just the ones that we're doing is enough. Well, so both of you, thank you so much for talking today to everybody, but also for doing this and for having the courage to keep on going and taking those steps day by day. And I guess if people in the community are interested in Saipan, perhaps, you know, they can, how was the best way to kind of contact Saipan? And I mean, I know that you're both incredibly busy, but if people want to help or get involved, how can they contact you?
So yeah, we're all over social media. You can get in touch with us. The general email address is info@saipanglobal.org. Drop us an email. It is difficult at the moment. We do get people that want to help us, but because we're in a state where we are still building, really, even after 2 years, we're looking to convert to a full charity at the moment and trying to focus on that. And it kind of feels that once we have, what we don't want to do is to say to people, you know, help us when we don't have something fully kind of in focus for them to do. But I would say reach out to us, you know, let us know what your background is. If you've taken part in, you know, a psychedelic assisted therapy trial, join the network. Please join the network, you know, but you don't have to have gone through that to help us with our work. How that looks, I think, is going to be clearer over the next 12 months. So if the initial response is not yet, but please, yes, later, then please be patient with us. And we'll try and be patient with ourselves as well.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Leonie. Thank you so much. And thank you for Saipan.
Thank you, Rose. And thank you for ACER.
Yeah. Thank you for being part of that too. Okay, stop this. How do I? Thank you both. I don't know how to stop the recording. Recording. Stop recording.